The call came at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Ethan's school. My 10-year-old son had collapsed during gym class. An ambulance was on the way. I was told to meet them at the hospital. I left work without explanation, driving with my hazards on, praying through every red light. By the time I reached the emergency room, they had already run tests. The doctor pulled me aside with results that made my stomach drop. Appendicitis, but not the routine kind. His appendix had ruptured. Sepsis was setting in. They needed to operate immediately, and the next 48 hours would be critical. I stood in the pre-op area, holding Ethan's hand while they prepped him. He was scared. I was terrified. The anesthesiologist explained the risks. The surgeon explained the complications. I signed forms with shaking hands. "Mom?" Ethan's voice was small. "Am I going to die?" "No, baby. You're going to be fine. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." They wheeled him away at 4:30. I watched the doors swing closed and felt utterly alone. I pulled out my phone and opened the family group chat. My parents, my 2 sisters, my brother. The people who've been at every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering for the past 10 years. I typed Ethan's in emergency surgery. Ruptured appendix. Sepsis. They said the next 48 hours are critical. Please come. I'm at Memorial Hospital, room 4 surgical waiting area. I need you. I hit send and waited. My phone showed the message was read within minutes. All 5 of them had seen it. Nobody responded. I waited 30 minutes. Then I called my mother. It went to voicemail. I called my dad. Voicemail. I called my sister Lauren. She texted back. Can't make it tonight. Have plans. Let me know how it goes. Plans. My son was fighting for his life, and she had plans. I called my other sister Michelle. No answer. I called my brother James. He texted. Stuck at work. Crazy deadline. Hope he's okay. Hope he's okay. Like it was a cold. Like it was a scraped knee. The surgery took 4 hours. I sat alone in the waiting room, watching other families gather around their loved ones. Groups of people bringing coffee, offering comfort, taking turns sitting vigil. I sat by myself. At 8:30, the surgeon came out. The surgery had gone well, but Ethan was critically ill. The infection had spread more than they'd hoped. He was in the pediatric ICU, touch and go for the next 2 days. I followed the nurse to the ICU. Ethan lay unconscious, tubes and monitors everywhere. His face was pale. His breathing was assisted by machines. I pulled a chair next to his bed and took his small hand in mine. That's where I stayed for 2 weeks. The ICU allowed me to sleep in the room. I left only to use the bathroom or grab food from the cafeteria. I was there when he woke up confused and in pain. There when his fever spiked to 104. There when he cried because his stomach hurt. There when he asked why nobody else came to visit. They're busy, honey, but I'm here. I'll always be here. My phone stayed mostly silent. A few thinking of you texts, nothing substantial. Nobody offered to bring me a change of clothes. Nobody asked what I needed. Nobody came to spell me for even an hour so I could go home and shower. On day 5, Ethan turned a corner. His fever broke. His infection markers started dropping. The doctors began talking about moving him out of the ICU. On day 8, they moved him to a regular pediatric room. He could eat soft foods. He could sit up. He could smile weakly when I read to him. On day 12, they said he could go home in a few days if he continued improving. I had been at the hospital for 12 days straight. I'd missed a week and a half of work. I'd slept in a chair, eaten cafeteria food, and worn the same 3 outfits I kept in my car's emergency bag. I'd done it all alone. On day 14, as I sat watching Ethan play a quiet game on his tablet, my phone started ringing. My mother. I declined the call. She called again. Declined. My father called. Declined. Lauren called. Michelle called. James called. Within an hour, I had 85 missed calls. Then the text started. Mom, honey, we need you now. It's urgent. Please call back. Dad, call your mother. This is serious. Lauren, why aren't you answering? We have a family emergency. Michelle, Mom is freaking out. You need to respond. James, this isn't funny. Pick up the phone. I turned my phone to silent and focused on Ethan. Whatever they wanted could wait. 3 days later, Ethan was discharged. We went home. He was weak but healing. I set him up on the couch with pillows, blankets, and his favorite movies, made him soup, gave him his antibiotics, helped him to the bathroom. My phone had accumulated over 100 messages and calls. On the third evening after discharge, while Ethan slept soundly in his own bed for the first time in over 2 weeks, I finally listened to the voicemails. Mom's voice, increasingly frantic across multiple messages. The mortgage payment bounced. The bank is calling. They're saying the automatic payment was canceled. I don't understand. Please call me. We're going to lose the house. Dad, your mother is beside herself. We need to talk about the house payment. Call us back immediately. Lauren, my car got repossessed this morning. They said the loan payment stopped. What's happening? I need help. Michelle, the hospital called. They're threatening to cancel Mom's chemo treatments because the payments aren't going through. This is life and death. Call me back. James, my business account is frozen. The bank says my loan is in default. I don't understand. You need to call me back now. I sat on my couch, listening to message after message, and the pieces started fitting together. 5 years ago, after my divorce settlement, I'd invested wisely, tech stocks that had done very well. I'd built a comfortable financial cushion while working full-time as a data analyst. My parents had retirement income but struggled with their mortgage after Dad's hours were cut. I'd quietly started making their mortgage payments, $800 a month. I told them it was temporary, just to help them get stable. 5 years later, I was still paying. Lauren had terrible credit from her 20s. When she needed a car for work, no one would finance her. I co-signed, then quietly took over the payments when she kept being late, $350 a month. Michelle's husband lost his job when Mom was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago. Mom's chemo wasn't fully covered by insurance, so I'd been paying the difference, $600 a month for 2 years. James had started a consulting business and needed startup capital. I guaranteed his business loan. When he was chronically late with payments, I covered them to protect my credit, $400 a month. I'd been paying $2,150 a month for 5 years to keep my family afloat. Not once had any of them thanked me. Not once had they asked if I could afford it. They just accepted it as normal, as their due. And when my son was dying, not one of them could find 2 hours to sit with me in a hospital waiting room. I'd set up all the payments as automatic transfers, scheduled to go out on the 15th of each month. When Ethan went into surgery on the 8th, I called my bank from the hospital cafeteria on day 3. Once I knew he would survive but was still processing their absence, I canceled every automatic transfer, every single one. The payments that should have gone out on the 15th never happened. Now 17 days later, my family was experiencing the consequences. I called my mother back. She answered on the first ring. Oh, thank God, honey. I don't know what happened. The mortgage payment didn't go through. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We need you to. I canceled it, I said calmly. Silence. Then, what? I canceled the automatic payment. I've been paying your mortgage for 5 years. $800 a month. $48,000 total. I canceled it. You can't just cancel it. We'll lose the house. I texted you when Ethan was in emergency surgery. When he had sepsis. When the doctors said he might die. I begged you to come. You said you had plans. That was Lauren. I had that book club thing. I couldn't just cancel. Your grandson was dying. I was alone in a hospital for 2 weeks. Nobody came. Nobody helped. Nobody even called to check on him. But now you have an urgent need, and suddenly I'm supposed to drop everything. That's different. This is our home, and Ethan is my child. He was in the ICU for 8 days. You couldn't spare 2 hours, not 2 hours out of 5 years of mortgage payments I've made for you. I heard my father in the background. What's she saying? Mom spoke away from the phone. She canceled the mortgage payment. She's been paying it for 5 years. I continued. I also canceled Lauren's car payment, Michelle's cancer treatment payments, and James's business loan coverage. All of it, effective the day Ethan went into surgery. You can't do this. Michelle needs those treatments. Michelle couldn't come to the hospital to sit with me while her nephew fought for his life. She couldn't take a few hours off work. But now she needs me immediately? She has a job. People have responsibilities. I have a job too. I took 2 weeks off without pay to save my son's life. Alone, while also being everyone's financial support system, without any of you acknowledging it, appreciating it, or showing up when I needed support for once. My father took the phone. Now you listen here. We're family. Family helps each other. You're right, Dad. Family helps each other. I've been helping for 5 years, $2,150 a month. That's over $128,000 in total. When I needed help, I got 85 missed calls about your mortgage, Lauren's car, Michelle's treatments, and James's business. Not one person called to ask how Ethan was doing. He's fine now, isn't he? The words hung in the air. He's fine now, like that made it okay. Yes, Dad, he's fine, because I was there. Every minute, every scary moment, every fever spike, every painful recovery step. Me, alone, where were you? We all have lives. We can't just drop everything. I did. I dropped everything. My job, my sleep, my life, for 2 weeks, and now you want me to drop everything again to fix your financial problems. Problems that exist because I've been subsidizing all of you while you took it for granted. I hung up. The calls didn't stop. Each family member called separately, then together, then in different combinations. The messages ranged from angry to pleading to guilt-tripping. Lauren, I need my car for work. You're ruining my life. Me? Via text. I needed my family when my son was dying. You had plans. Michelle, Mom could die without her treatments. How can you be so cruel? Me? Ethan could have died. You were too busy to come to the hospital. Not one visit in 2 weeks. James, my business will collapse. I'll lose everything. Me? I was losing my child, and you were stuck at work with a deadline. Your business loan is your problem now. They tried rallying other relatives. My aunt called. Your mother is beside herself. This is extreme, over one missed hospital visit. It wasn't one visit. It was 2 weeks, 17 days, 238 hours in the hospital. Not one person came. Not for 2 hours. Not for 30 minutes. Not at all. They didn't know it was that serious. I said he was critical. I said sepsis. I said emergency surgery. How much more serious does it need to be? She had no answer. A week after my phone call with my parents, my mother showed up at my house. I watched through the window as she knocked. I didn't answer. She left an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a check for $800 and a note. For this month's mortgage. We'll figure out how to pay it ourselves from now on. I'm sorry we didn't come to the hospital. I thought you were exaggerating. I thought kids bounce back. I didn't realize. I didn't cash the check. Ethan recovered fully over the next month. He went back to school. His energy returned, his scar healed. Sometimes he asked why Grandma and Grandpa didn't visit anymore, why his aunts and uncle didn't come around. Sometimes people show you who they really are, I told him, and you have to believe them. My parents sold their house 3 months later and moved to a smaller condo they could afford on their retirement income. Lauren bought a less expensive used car and picked up a second job. Michelle and her husband arranged a payment plan with the hospital, and his new job's insurance covered more of the treatments. James's business downsized, and he took on a partner who provided capital. They all survived. They figured it out, without me. And I learned something I should have learned years ago. Being needed and being valued are not the same thing. My family needed my money. They didn't value my presence. When I needed presence, they were too busy. When they needed money, I was expected to drop everything. 6 months after Ethan's surgery, my mother called, not about money, just to ask how we were doing. How Ethan was healing, if we'd like to come to Sunday dinner. I said no. Maybe someday I'll say yes. When enough time has passed, when the memory of sitting alone in the ICU has faded enough to make room for forgiveness. But not yet. For now, I pay my own bills. I take care of my son. I show up for the people who show up for me. And I sleep well at night knowing that when my child needed me most, I was there. I can't say the same for the people who raised me, the ones I helped for 5 years, who couldn't spare 2 hours when it mattered most. They taught me an expensive lesson, $128,000 expensive. But at least I learned it. Some lessons are worth the price. The invitation came via text. Annual summer pool party at the beach house, Saturday at 2 p.m. My kids were excited. Laylee, age 8, asked about her swimsuit. Owen, age 6, wanted to know about the diving boards. Saturday arrived hot and sunny. We drove 40 minutes to the coast, the kids chattering about swimming and seeing their cousins. I hadn't been to the beach house in months. We arrived to find the driveway packed. Through the gate, I could see at least 50 people around the pool, extended family, mom's friends, neighbors. The kids ran ahead in their swimsuits, towels trailing behind them. I followed with our beach bag, sunscreen, and a fruit salad I'd brought to contribute. Mom stood near the pool in an expensive cover-up, holding court with a group of her book club friends. She saw us approaching, and her expression shifted. "What are you doing here?" she asked, loudly enough that nearby conversations stopped. "You texted me about the party," I said, confused. "Saturday at 2. That was meant for your sister. I must have hit your contact by mistake." Lily and Owen stood next to me, confusion on their faces. They were already in their swimsuits, ready to jump in. "Well, we're here now," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "The kids are excited to swim. Get out of the pool." Mom shouted suddenly. I realized Lily had already climbed down the ladder into the shallow end. "This party is for respectable family only, not divorced failures." Every conversation around the pool stopped. 50 guests turned to stare. Lily froze in the water, her face crumbling. Owen pressed against my leg. "Mom," I said quietly, "they're children. They just want to swim. They can swim at public pools with other children from broken homes. This is a private party for family members who've made good choices." She looked at Lily, still standing in the pool. I said, "Get out." My 8-year-old daughter climbed out of the pool, water streaming off her, tears rolling down her face. I wrapped a towel around her shoulders. "Let's go, kids," I said softly. "But we just got here," Owen whispered. "I wanted to see the beach." "I know, baby. We'll go to a different beach." I gathered our things while 50 people watched in silence. My sister stood near the barbecue, looking at her feet. My brother sat in a lounge chair, suddenly fascinated by his phone. Not one person spoke up. Mom followed us to the gate. "And don't come back. I'm tired of pretending your life choices haven't embarrassed this family. A failed marriage, a mediocre job, raising kids alone. You're an example of what not to become." I loaded my crying children into the car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see the party resuming, people returning to their conversations as if nothing had happened. "Why does Grandma hate us?" Laylee asked from the backseat. "She doesn't hate you, sweetheart." "She does. She said we're from a broken home." I had no good answer for that. We drove to a public beach instead, where the kids swam in the ocean, and I sat in the sand trying to process what had just happened. By evening, they were exhausted and sunburned despite reapplying sunscreen. We drove home in silence. That night, after putting them to bed, I sat in my home office and pulled out a file I kept in my desk drawer: property documents, deed records, rental agreements. The beach house my mother loved so much, the one she'd been renting for 3 years at below market rates, was mine. I'd bought it 6 years ago as an investment property, one of 4 rental homes I owned along the coast. What Mom didn't know, what nobody in my family knew, was that I wasn't a failure with a mediocre job. I was a software engineer who'd spent 10 years building and selling applications. The last one had sold for enough money that I'd been able to invest in real estate while still working full-time. My divorce wasn't a failure either. It was a decision to leave a marriage where I wasn't valued. I'd walked away with my dignity and enough settlement money to secure my children's future. The modest house I lived in, the practical car I drove, the simple clothes I wore, all choices. I lived well below my means because I was building wealth, not displaying it. I'd given Mom a special rental rate on the beach house because she was family, $1,200 a month for a property that could command $4,000 in the summer season. I'd justified it as helping her enjoy retirement. Now, sitting in my office listening to my daughter cry herself to sleep down the hall, I was done justifying. Monday morning, I called Coastal Property Management, the company that handled my rental portfolio. "Jennifer, it's Melissa. I need you to send a lease termination notice to 847 Shore Drive." "Your mother's place? Is she moving?" "Not voluntarily. 60-day notice as of today." "Understood. I'll draft the notice today." I hung up and called my lawyer to review all my property holdings under my personal name. The notice went out Tuesday. By Wednesday, my phone was ringing. "What is this?" Mom's voice was sharp. "I got a notice that my lease isn't being renewed." "That's correct." "Why?" "I've been a perfect tenant. I pay on time. I take care of the property. The owner has decided not to renew. That's all you need to know." "Well, who is the owner? I want to speak to them directly. This is outrageous. I've been here 3 years. I have rights." "You have a month-to-month lease after the initial year. Either party can terminate with 60 days notice. You're getting 62 days, actually." "This is because of Saturday, isn't it?" "You called my landlord and complained." "I didn't need to call anyone." "Then why is this happening?" "You'll figure it out eventually. The notice has all the relevant information." She hung up on me, My phone rang again immediately, my sister this time. Mom is freaking out about the beach house. What did you do? Nothing. Her lease isn't being renewed. She thinks you're behind it somehow. Am I capable of that? I thought I was a divorce failure with a mediocre job. Look, she was harsh on Saturday. But you don't need to blow up her whole summer. I'm not blowing up anything. Her lease is ending. She can find another rental. In 60 days, during summer season, everything is booked. That's unfortunate. My sister paused. You really aren't going to help her? Why would I? She kicked my children out of a pool party, called them broken, humiliated them in front of 50 people. She was just setting boundaries. Then I'm setting mine. Goodbye, Amanda. The calls continued throughout the week. My brother left a voicemail saying I was being petty. Mom's sister called to lecture me. I ignored all of it and took my kids to the beach. This is better than Grandma's pool, Lily announced. Why's that? Because we're allowed to be here. Friday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Mom stood on my porch, her face red. We need to talk. I'm busy. 5 minutes, please. Against my better judgment, I let her in. The kids were at a neighbor's house, thankfully. I've spent all week trying to find a new rental. Everything is booked or twice what I'm paying now. She sat on my couch uninvited. I need you to talk to my landlord. Explain that it was a misunderstanding. I can't help you. Can't or won't. Both. Melissa, I'm your mother. I'm asking for help. You kicked my children out of a pool party. You called them broken in front of 50 people. I was trying to teach you about consequences. You made bad choices, and there are results from that. What bad choices? Leaving a marriage where I wasn't happy? Supporting myself and my children? Building a stable life? You're a single mother living in a tiny house, driving an old car. This house is 1,200 square feet and paid off. The car is 5 years old and reliable. I live within my means. Exactly. Means that are clearly limited. I almost told her then. Almost explained that my means were far more substantial than she'd ever imagined. But something stopped me. I can't help you with the landlord situation, I said. You need to leave now. She stood up, anger flashing. Fine, when I'm homeless this summer, you can live with that on your conscience. You won't be homeless. You have other options. She left, slamming the door. The 60 days ticked down. Mom continued calling, increasingly desperate. The beach house was apparently the centerpiece of her social life. She planned parties, invited friends for weekends, promised her book club would meet there monthly. Without it, she was facing either a much smaller apartment inland or a rental that would consume most of her retirement income. I felt a twinge of guilt, a small one. Then I'd remember Laylee's face as she climbed out of that pool, her humiliation in front of all those people, and the guilt evaporated. On day 45, my lawyer called. Your mother filed a complaint with the rental board claiming discrimination. On what grounds? Familial retaliation. She claims the landlord is refusing to renew because she exercised her right to exclude people from her private party. Her rental property isn't her private residence. She doesn't have the right to exclude my children from family events held at a place she doesn't own. I know that, but she's made a formal complaint. The board wants a response from the property owner. Schedule a hearing. I'll respond in person. The hearing was set for day 53. Mom showed up with a lawyer, clearly expecting to argue her case to some faceless property management company. Instead, she found me sitting at the respondent's table. What are you doing here? She demanded. The hearing officer looked up from her paperwork. Ms. Wilson is listed as the respondent property owner. That's impossible. I assure you it's not. The officer opened a file. Melissa Wilson purchased the property at 847 Shore Drive 6 years ago. She's been the owner for the duration of your tenancy. Mom's face went white. Her lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently. The beach house is yours. Mom's voice was barely audible. Yes. The whole time? Yes. And you let me rent it? I gave you a 70% discount on market rate. I thought I was helping family. The hearing officer cleared her throat. Ms. Wilson, your complaint alleges discrimination. Can you explain the grounds? Mom's lawyer spoke up. Our position is that the landlord is terminating the lease in retaliation for my client exercising her rights at a private event. The event in question was held at my property, I said calmly. A property Ms. Wilson doesn't own. She invited 50 guests to my beach house, then physically expelled my minor children from the premises while humiliating them publicly. I pulled out my phone and showed the officer photos. Lily and Owen in their swimsuits, excited for the party, time-stamped an hour before the event. Then screenshots of text messages from guests who had witnessed what happened. 3 people had messaged me afterward, appalled at mom's behavior. My children were traumatized by being kicked out of a family event at my own property. I decided I no longer wanted to subsidize the rental of that property to someone who treats my children cruelly. The hearing officer read through everything. She looked at Mom. Ms. Wilson, this hearing is to determine if there's discrimination in housing. The property owner has the right to not renew a lease at the end of its term for any reason that doesn't violate protected class status. Family disputes don't qualify as discrimination. But she's doing this because I set boundaries, Mom protested. You set boundaries at her property regarding her children. She's now setting boundaries regarding her property. The officer closed the file. Complaint dismissed. The lease termination stands. We left the building separately. I was almost to my car when Mom caught up with me. I didn't know you owned that house. I know. All this time, you let me think I was renting from strangers. I wanted you to enjoy it without feeling obligated to me. And now you're taking it away. Yes. Because of one party, one bad day. Because you kicked my children out of a pool and called them broken in front of 50 people. Because not one person in our family stood up for them. Because you taught me that cruelty has consequences. I'm your mother. And they're my children, they come first. She looked at me for a long moment. What if I apologized? To me or to them? Both. It's too late for this lease. The notice has been given. But Mom, it was never really about the beach house. It's about how you treat people when you think they're beneath you. I don't think you're beneath me. You called me a divorce failure with a mediocre job. You said my children are from a broken home. You humiliated them publicly. I was trying to help you see that choices matter. They do. You made choices that day. I'm making choices now. I got in my car and drove away. The 60 days ended. Mom moved to a 2-bedroom apartment 30 miles inland. No ocean view, no pool, no beach house for her friends to admire. I kept the property off the rental market for 3 months, using it for weekends with my kids. We swam in that pool without anyone telling us we didn't belong. We walked on the beach collecting shells. We had barbecues and watched sunsets. Lily asked once if Grandma would ever say sorry. I don't know, sweetheart. If she does, would we forgive her? That depends on whether she means it and whether she changes how she acts. What if she doesn't? Then we keep building our own life, a good one, without people who make us feel small. Eventually, Mom did apologize. 6 months later, at Christmas, she knelt down and told Lily and Owen she'd been wrong, that they weren't broken and that she was sorry. Lily looked at me. I nodded. It's okay, Grandma, she said quietly. It wasn't perfect, but Mom started treating my children better. She started asking about my work with genuine interest. I rented the beach house to market-rate tenants. The income funded Lily and Owen's college accounts. And sometimes, on summer weekends, we'd go there ourselves. We'd swim in that pool where we had once been kicked out, and I'd remind them that dignity isn't about what other people think. It's about knowing your own worth, even when others can't see it. The open-concept living room was filled with friends and colleagues. I'd worked 12 years in software engineering to afford this house, a modest 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, but it was mine. The mortgage was in my name. Every payment came from my salary, my bonuses, my stock options that had finally vested. On the mantel above the fireplace, I'd arranged my professional awards. Employee of the Year for my first company, the Innovation Award for my second, patent plaques for 3 different software solutions I'd developed, and a framed letter from the CEO thanking me for saving the company $2 million annually through a system redesign. My brother Derek arrived late with his wife and 9-year-old daughter Lily. He walked through the front door, looked around my new house, and I saw his jaw tighten. He didn't congratulate me. He just asked where the food was. I was in the kitchen refilling appetizer trays when I heard the crash. Glass breaking, multiple pieces hitting the hardwood floor. I walked into the living room. Lily stood in front of the mantel, 3 of my awards smashed on the floor around her feet. She was holding one of my patent plaques, raising it above her head. Dad says you're just lucky, she screamed at full volume. Dad says you didn't work for any of this. Dad says some people just get lucky. She threw the plaque down. It hit the stone hearth and cracked in half. I looked at Derek. He was standing near the doorway, arms crossed, and as I watched, he gave Lily a thumbs up. Not subtle, not hidden. A clear gesture of approval in front of 30 people. My colleagues stared. My friends looked uncomfortable. My manager, whom I'd invited, stood with his mouth slightly open. I smiled, walked over to the broken awards, and picked up the pieces carefully so no one would cut themselves on the glass. "It's fine," I said to the room. "Accidents happen." Then I walked upstairs to my home office, grabbed my laptop and phone, and left through the side door. I got in my car and drove away from my own housewarming party. I went to a 24-hour diner and ordered coffee. Then I opened my laptop and accessed my banking portal. 4 years ago, Derek had started a landscaping business. He'd been working construction, hated his boss, and decided he could do better on his own. He had ambition but no capital, no credit history, no assets to use as collateral. He asked me to co-sign a business loan, $50,000 for equipment, trucks, mowers, aerators, all the machinery needed to run a professional landscaping operation. I'd said no initially. I was saving for a house. I didn't want my credit tied to his business risk. Then Mom got involved, and Dad, and Derek's wife. Family pressure mounted for weeks. "He's your brother. Family helps family. You make good money. You can afford the risk. He'll pay it back. Don't you want to see him succeed?" Eventually, I signed. Not as a co-signer, but as the primary guarantor. The bank required it because Derek's credit was poor and he had no collateral. I put up my assets, my credit, my financial standing to secure his loan. Derek made payments for 6 months, then they started coming late. Then he missed one entirely. I got a call from the bank. I covered it to protect my credit. He swore he'd pay me back. Over 4 years, I covered 8 missed payments, $6,400 of my own money, keeping his loan current, keeping his business afloat, keeping my credit score from tanking. He never paid me back. He just kept telling family gatherings how hard he worked, how he built his business from nothing, how some people were self-made and others just got lucky with desk jobs. I pulled up the loan documentation, read through the guarantee agreement, then drafted an email to the bank's business loan department. "I am formally withdrawing as guarantor on business loan account number 4782 to 93562847, effective immediately. Per the terms of the guarantee agreement, I am exercising my right to terminate the guarantee with written notice. Please initiate standard collection procedures with the primary borrower." I attached my guarantee agreement showing the termination clause. Then I sent it. 3 minutes later, I called the bank's 24-hour business line and spoke to a supervisor. I confirmed my email, my identity, and that I understood this would trigger immediate loan default since Derek had no other collateral and insufficient credit to carry the loan independently. "We'll process this first thing Monday morning," the supervisor said. "The account will move to collections and we'll begin asset recovery procedures." "How long until asset recovery?" I asked. "Usually 48 to 72 hours after default notification." "Thank you." I hung up and sat in the diner until midnight. Then I got a hotel room. I didn't want to go back to my house with Derek probably still there, telling people how lucky I was. Monday morning at 8:30, Derek called me. I didn't answer. He called 6 more times. Left voicemails that escalated from confused to panicked. At 9:15, my mother called. "Derek says men came and took his trucks. What's happening? Do you know anything about this?" "Repo company. His loan defaulted." "What? How did his loan default?" "He's been making payments. I've been making 8 of his payments over 4 years. $6,400 that he never repaid. And I was the guarantor on his loan. I withdrew my guarantee. The bank called the loan. Standard procedure." "You what? You can't just do that. His business needs those trucks." He should have thought about that before he let his daughter destroy my awards while he gave her a thumbs up. That was just kids being kids. You're destroying his livelihood over a childish mistake. Lily repeated exactly what Derek has been saying about me for years. That I'm just lucky. That I didn't work for anything. She destroyed awards representing 12 years of work, Mom. Awards for patents and innovations and documented achievements. And Derek approved. He gave her a thumbs up in front of my colleagues. He was joking. He was teaching his daughter that my success doesn't matter because it's just luck. While I've been subsidizing his business for 4 years. While I've been covering his missed loan payments. While I've been protecting my own credit by paying his debts. That's not luck, Mom. That's me working and him taking. Where is he supposed to get trucks now? How is he supposed to work? That's not my problem. I'm not his guarantor anymore. His loan, his business, his responsibility. She hung up on me. By Tuesday, my phone had exploded. Derek had told everyone I'd sabotaged his business, that I betrayed him out of jealousy, that I'd destroyed his livelihood over a broken picture frame. My dad called. You need to fix this. Derek has employees, people depending on him. You can't just pull the rug out. I can, actually. I withdrew my guarantee legally. The bank followed standard procedures. Derek defaulted on his loan. Those are the consequences. He's your brother. He's a brother who's been calling my career luck for 4 years while I've paid $6,400 of his missed loan payments. He's a brother who taught his daughter to trash my achievements at my housewarming party. Family goes both ways, Dad. Derek showed up at my house Wednesday evening. I watched through the window as he pounded on my door. I didn't answer. He stood there for 20 minutes, alternating between knocking and yelling. I know you're in there. We need to talk about this. You can't just destroy my business. I called the police non-emergency line. They sent an officer who asked Derek to leave. He left, but not before shouting, "This isn't over." On Thursday, Derek's wife called me. She was crying. Please, Derek has 3 employees. They have families. One of them just had a baby. You're putting them all out of work. Derek put them out of work by building a business on a foundation he couldn't support. I was never supposed to be a permanent guarantor. I was supposed to be temporary help until the established credit. That was 4 years ago. He's been struggling. The business has tight margins. Then he shouldn't have had his daughter destroy my professional awards while he encouraged her. He shouldn't have spent 4 years telling everyone I'm just lucky while depending on my financial backing. He made choices. These are consequences. She hung up. On Friday, I got a call from the bank. Mr. Hayes, the borrower is requesting a meeting with you to discuss reinstating the guarantee. Are you interested? Set it up. Monday morning, 9 o'clock. I'll be there. Monday morning, I arrived at the bank at 8:45. Derek was already there, sitting in the conference room with a loan officer. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. I sat down across from him. The loan officer started, Mr. Hayes, your brother would like to discuss the possibility of you reinstating your guarantee on his business loan. Without it, the loan remains in default and will continue asset recovery proceedings. I understand, I said. Derek leaned forward. Please, I'm sorry about the awards. Lily didn't understand. She's just a kid. I shouldn't have laughed. I'm sorry, but I have employees. I have contracts. I need those trucks back. The trucks are gone, Derek. Auctioned already. The bank moved fast. He looked at the loan officer, who nodded in confirmation. Then help me get new ones. Reinstate the guarantee. I'll do better. I'll make every payment. I'll pay you back the money I owe you. You've owed me that money for 4 years. You've never paid a dollar of it back. You've never even acknowledged it. You just kept telling everyone at family dinners how hard you work while some people get lucky with desk jobs. I was just talking. I didn't mean anything by it. You meant it enough to teach it to your daughter. She didn't come up with Dad says you're just lucky on her own. You've been saying that for years, to her, to Mom, to Dad, to anyone who'll listen. The loan officer looked uncomfortable but stayed quiet. I'm sorry, Derek said again. I'll stop. I'll tell people you worked hard. I'll make sure Lily knows. Just help me save my business. No. What? No. I'm not reinstating the guarantee. I'm not co-signing anything. I'm not providing financial backing. You're on your own. You're serious? You're really going to let my business die over this? Your business died because you couldn't sustain it without my financial support. That's not a viable business, Derek. That's a business dependent on someone else's credit and money. You've had 4 years to build real credit, real collateral, real stability. Instead, you've been calling me lucky while I subsidized your dream. I have a family. I have employees. So do I. I have a career I worked 12 years to build. I have achievements that mean something. I have a house I saved for. All of it earned, Derek. Not luck. Work. And I'm done letting you diminish that work while benefiting from it. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly. The family is going to hear about this. They already have, he told them. What you didn't tell them is that I've been covering your missed loan payments for 4 years. That I've paid over $6,000 keeping your business afloat. That I've been the only reason you still had trucks to repossess. I stood up too. You can start over, Derek. Get a job, save money, build credit properly, start smaller, do it the right way, but you'll do it without my financial backing and without calling my success luck. I left the bank. Derek stayed, presumably trying to negotiate with the loan officer, but there was nothing to negotiate. Without a guarantor or collateral, his loan was dead. His business closed 3 weeks later. He sold what equipment he still had to pay final wages and close out contracts. Then he got a job with one of his former competitors, working as a crew lead. At family gatherings after that, he didn't talk much. When people asked about his business, he gave vague answers about restructuring and market changes. He never mentioned the repo, never mentioned the guarantee, never mentioned me. Lily, interestingly, wrote me an apology letter 6 months later. It was clearly coached by adults, but it was sincere enough. She said she was sorry for breaking my awards and that she'd learned actions have consequences. I wrote back thanking her and explaining that the awards represented years of work, not luck. I didn't mention her father's business. She'd learned that lesson from watching him work for someone else. I got my patent plaques reprinted. The other awards were irreplaceable originals, but I kept the broken pieces in a box in my office, a reminder that family support isn't infinite and that enablement isn't love. Derek and I don't talk beyond basic holiday greetings. His wife doesn't call. His daughter waves awkwardly when she sees me. My parents eventually stopped pressuring me to fix things with Derek. I think they finally understood that I didn't break anything. Derek broke it by building his success story on dismissing mine. I still own my house, still work my lucky desk job, still collect awards occasionally for work that Derek will probably forever consider luck rather than skill. And Derek still works for someone else, earning an hourly wage, no longer telling people how he built his business from nothing. Because it turned out he built it from something. He built it from my credit, my money, my guarantee, and my willingness to be taken for granted. When I withdrew those things, there was nothing left to hold it up. Some people call that cruel. I call it reality. You can't call someone lucky while standing on their foundation, then act surprised when they step aside and let gravity do its work. Derek fell, not because I pushed him, but because I stopped holding him up while he spat on my success. That's not cruelty. That's just physics. The envelopes were crisp and white, lined up on the coffee table like soldiers awaiting orders. My mother stood in front of her living room full of family, beaming with the particular pride that comes from public generosity. Thanksgiving dinner had been cleared away, dessert finished, and now came the moment she'd been building toward all evening. She'd mentioned several times during dinner that she had something special planned, glancing meaningfully at the grandchildren. I have something special for my grandchildren, she announced now, positioning herself near the coffee table for maximum visibility. $500 for each of you, to help with Christmas shopping, college funds, or whatever you need. I believe in investing in family. My son Marcus sat on the ottoman near the fireplace, one leg crossed over the other. He was 17, tall and quiet, wearing the navy button-down shirt he'd ironed himself that morning before we drove an hour to get here. Around him, his 6 cousins perked up with immediate interest, phones forgotten, attention suddenly laser-focused. My mother picked up the first envelope, holding it up like a prize. "Brittany, come here, sweetheart." My sister Susan's daughter, 15 years old, with her mother's blonde hair, bounced over with appropriate enthusiasm. $500 in cash, 20s and 50s, visible as my mother fanned them out for effect. Brittany squealed and hugged her grandmother while everyone applauded. Tyler, my mother called next. My brother Greg's son, 19, another envelope. Madison, Susan's younger daughter. Joshua, Greg's middle son. Olivia, my other sister Christine's daughter. Andrew, Christine's son. 6 envelopes, 6 grandchildren, all accounted for, except Marcus sat there still waiting. "Grandma?" Olivia asked. "What about Marcus?" My mother's smile didn't waver. "This is for my actual grandchildren. Marcus has a different situation." The room went quiet in that awful way where everyone knows something terrible is happening but no one wants to acknowledge it. "Mom," I started. "Jennifer, please. I'm helping my family. Marcus should just be grateful he was included in dinner. Not every family would be so welcoming." My brother Greg laughed nervously. "She's got a point. I mean, technically. Poor kids should just be grateful for food," my mother said. And somehow that was worse than the exclusion itself. Several relatives chuckled. Marcus's face didn't change. He just sat there, hands folded in his lap, watching his cousins count their money. I stood up, pulling my phone from my pocket. I took a single photo of the scene, my mother holding the last envelope, the cousins with their cash, Marcus sitting alone by the fireplace. "Marcus, get your coat. We're leaving." "Jennifer, don't be dramatic. I gave you a generous Thanksgiving dinner." "Come on, honey," I said to my son, ignoring her. In the car, Marcus was silent for the first 10 minutes. Then, "I'm okay, Mom." "You shouldn't have to be okay with that. She doesn't define me. You taught me that." "I know, but it still hurts." "Yeah, it does." We drove home to our apartment, much smaller than my mother's house, much smaller than my siblings' houses. But it was ours, and we'd built something good there. What my mother didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Marcus had accomplished something extraordinary. 6 weeks earlier, he'd received news that he'd won the Davidson Fellows Scholarship, one of the most prestigious awards in the country for students who completed significant projects. Marcus had spent 2 years developing a tutoring app specifically designed for students in foster care and group homes, kids like he'd been before I adopted him at age 9. The scholarship came with $75,000. Marcus had made a decision that surprised even me. He wanted to donate $50,000 to create a permanent scholarship fund through our local community foundation for students aging out of foster care, helping them afford college. "I could help when I needed it," he told me. "Now I want to help others." The community foundation had been thrilled. They contacted the local newspaper, and the story was scheduled to run the day after Thanksgiving. I'd known it was coming. Marcus had mentioned it at dinner, actually, but my mother had talked over him, more interested in discussing my sister's new kitchen renovation. Friday morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with notifications. The article was live. Local teen donates $50,000 scholarship to help foster youth. The photo showed Marcus presenting an oversized check to the foundation director. The article detailed his accomplishments: perfect GPA, National Merit Scholar, Davidson Fellow, full scholarship to MIT starting in the fall. It described his app, his volunteer work, and his commitment to helping others. Marcus Thompson didn't have to think twice about sharing his success, the article read. Adopted from foster care at age 9 by single mother Jennifer Thompson, Marcus credits his experiences with teaching him the value of community support. Now he's paying it forward. I read the article 3 times. Then I opened Facebook. I posted the link to the article, added the photo I'd taken the night before, and wrote a caption. "Yesterday, my mother gave $500 to each grandchild except Marcus. She said he should be grateful for food since he's not actually family. Today, Marcus donated $50,000 to help students who need it. Character isn't measured in cash, it's measured in compassion." I hit share and put my phone down to make breakfast. By lunch, the post had been shared 200 times. By dinner, 2,000. By Saturday morning, the local news had called asking for an interview. By Sunday, the shares had reached 50,000. "It's going viral," the reporter told me on the phone. "People are moved by your son's story, the juxtaposition of a grandmother excluding a child while that same child is donating $50,000 to help others. It's powerful, and people are outraged by your mother's behavior." The comment section is unprecedented. I scrolled through some of the comments. There were thousands now, growing by the minute. "This grandmother should be ashamed. That boy has more character than the entire family combined. That boy has more character in his little finger than she has in her whole body. Imagine excluding him and then finding out he's a National Merit Scholar going to MIT. I'm donating to his scholarship fund right now. That kid deserves a better family than this." As a former foster kid, this hits hard. We're always told we should be grateful. Meanwhile, this kid is giving away tens of thousands. The irony of her being on the community foundation board while treating her adopted grandson like this. The comments multiplied by the hour, hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Screenshots of the post appeared on Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. Local parenting groups shared it. Foster care advocacy organizations amplified it. Education bloggers wrote think pieces about it. The community foundation called Sunday morning. "We've received over $15,000 in additional donations to Marcus's fund in the past 48 hours. People are inspired by him." Regional news picked it up Sunday evening. By Monday, it had hit national outlets. "Teen excluded from family gifts donates $50,000 to others," ran on 3 cable news networks. My phone was ringing constantly, mostly my siblings and mostly angry. "You're making Mom look bad," Susan said. "Mom made herself look bad. I just documented it." "You should have kept this private. It's family business." She made it public when she excluded Marcus in front of everyone. She wanted witnesses to her generosity. Now she has witnesses to her cruelty. My mother called Tuesday afternoon. "Jennifer, you need to take that post down. People are saying horrible things about me." "What are they saying?" "That I'm cruel. That I'm a terrible grandmother. I've been asked to step down from the Community Foundation Board." The irony is remarkable. "This isn't funny. My friends have seen this. Everyone knows. Everyone knew Thursday night too. They watched you exclude a 17-year-old boy and laughed about it." "Marcus isn't my real grandson. You adopted him. That's different. He's been my son for 8 years. He's your grandson. You just never accepted him. I gave him Thanksgiving dinner, and he donated $50,000 to strangers. Funny how the poor kid showed more generosity than the wealthy grandmother who couldn't even give him $500. She hung up. The interview requests kept coming. Marcus agreed to one with a local station because they promised to focus on the scholarship fund rather than the family drama. I watched him on TV, poised and articulate. "Some people measure worth in money," he said. "I measure it in impact. I want to help students who are in situations similar to what I experienced. Foster care is hard. Aging out of the system is terrifying. If I can make that transition easier for even a few people, then I'll consider my scholarship money well spent." "What about your grandmother's exclusion on Thanksgiving?" the interviewer asked gently. "That hurt," Marcus admitted. "I won't lie about that. But it also reminded me why I wanted to create this fund. Because being told you're not good enough, not worthy, not real family, that's something too many kids in foster care experience. If my story helps people understand that kind of rejection and do better, then maybe something good came from it." The interviewer's eyes were shining. "You're a remarkable young man. I'm just trying to be better than the worst moments I've experienced." The clip went viral too. 50,000 shares, then 100,000. Comments poured in from foster parents, former foster kids, teachers, and social workers. Marcus became a symbol of resilience and character. My mother became a symbol of something else entirely. Her country club friends distanced themselves. Her church group was uncomfortable around her. The Community Foundation, where she'd served on the board for 15 years, asked for her resignation. "It's hypocritical," they told her, "to serve on a board supporting disadvantaged youth while publicly excluding and demeaning your adopted grandson." She lost her position, lost friendships, couldn't go to the grocery store without people recognizing her as that grandmother from the viral post. 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, she showed up at our apartment with a check. $5,000, she said, holding it out to Marcus. "What I should have given you. With interest." Marcus looked at the check, looked at her. "I don't want your money. Don't be foolish. $5,000 is significant. I donated $50,000 to help people I've never met. Why would I accept $5,000 from someone who called me not real family?" "Marcus, I'm trying to make this right." "You're trying to make yourself feel better. That's different." He handed the check back. "I don't need your money. I never did. What I needed was to be treated like I mattered, like I was part of the family. You couldn't give me that, so your money doesn't mean anything." My mother's hand shook as she took the check back. "I raised you, Jennifer. This is how you taught him to speak to his grandmother?" "I taught him to know his worth, something you tried very hard to convince him he didn't have." She left. We didn't hear from her for months. Christmas came and went. We volunteered at a homeless shelter serving food. The local news covered that too, because Marcus had become someone they followed. More donations came in for the scholarship fund. By spring, the fund had grown to $65,000. The Community Foundation announced they'd be able to help 20 students with grants ranging from $2,000 to $5,000 each. Marcus's name was on the fund. Not Thompson Scholarship, though that was my last name. He named it the Second Chances Scholarship Fund. "Because everyone deserves a second chance," he explained. "Even people who got excluded from families. Even people who thought they didn't matter." He graduated high school in May, valedictorian, full scholarship to MIT. The local paper ran another feature. My mother showed up at graduation, uninvited. She sat in the back, cried when Marcus gave his speech, and tried to approach him at the reception afterward. "I'm so proud of you," she said. Marcus was polite but distant. Thank you. All your success, your scholarship, MIT. It's wonderful. Yes, it is. I always knew you were special. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. No, you didn't. You told me I should be grateful for food. That I wasn't real family. That poor kids like me didn't deserve the same gifts as your actual grandchildren. I was wrong. I see that now. You see it now because everyone else sees it. Because your friends saw the article. Because you lost your board position. You don't see it because you actually understand what you did wrong. That's not fair. Neither is giving 6 kids $500 while the 7th kid watches. Neither is laughing about poor kids being grateful for food. Neither is 8 years of making me feel like I didn't belong. He walked away. She stood there, holding her program, crying. We drove home together, Marcus and I. He was quiet, processing. Did I handle that okay? He finally asked. You handled it perfectly. You were honest and kind. You set boundaries. That's all you can do. I don't hate her. I know. But I don't need her validation anymore. I spent years wanting her to see me, really see me. Now I realize that's not my problem to fix. I know who I am. The community knows who I am. That's enough. That's more than enough. In August, we moved Marcus to MIT, helped him set up his dorm room, met his roommate, toured the campus. My mother wasn't there. She'd sent a card and a check. Marcus donated the check to his scholarship fund. The Second Chances Scholarship Fund helped its first recipient that fall, a girl aging out of foster care, starting at community college. She sent Marcus a thank you note. Because of you, I can afford textbooks and still eat. You saved me. Marcus kept that note on his desk, next to the photo I'd taken on Thanksgiving, the one that had changed everything. In the photo, you can see 6 kids holding money, my mother smiling, and Marcus sitting quietly by the fireplace. He said he kept it to remember where he came from, to remember that worth isn't given by others, it's built by yourself. My mother's $500 bought my nieces and nephews some presents that year. Marcus's $50,000 changed 20 lives. In the end, that was the only math that mattered. The backyard was decorated with silver and blue balloons. A banner read, "Congratulations, Dr. Hayes." Across the patio, 30 people milled around, congratulating me on finishing my doctorate in biochemistry. 7 years of research, 4 published papers, and a dissertation defense that had gone better than I'd hoped. My sister, Nicole, arrived an hour late with her 6-year-old son, Tyler. She didn't apologize for being late or congratulate me on the degree. She just grabbed a plate of food and sat at the far table, scrolling through her phone while Tyler ran around unsupervised. I was talking with my former advisor when I heard glass break. Tyler had knocked over someone's wine glass while chasing another kid. Nicole glanced up, shrugged, and went back to her phone. I excused myself and cleaned up the mess, smiling at the guests and making light of it. Kids will be kids. 20 minutes later, I was standing near the gift table where I'd set my framed diploma, the official one from the university, embossed and sealed, representing 7 years of work. My advisor had just handed me a card when Tyler ran up, grabbed the diploma off the table, and before I could react, ripped it down the middle. The tearing sound cut through the conversation. People turned to stare. Tyler held up the torn pieces and shouted at full volume, "Mom says you're not smart. She says you just read books all day and waste money." The backyard went silent. Nicole walked over, looked at the destroyed diploma, and high-fived her son. Then she laughed. Not a nervous or embarrassed laugh, a genuine, amused one. "He's not wrong," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. 7 years for a piece of paper. Must be nice to play student while the rest of us work real jobs. I stood there holding the torn pieces of my diploma. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I just looked at my sister, at her smirking face, at her son who was mimicking her laughter. "Understood," I said quietly. I handed the pieces to my best friend, walked inside my house, and grabbed my laptop and phone. Then I got in my car and left my own graduation party. I drove to a coffee shop and sat in the corner booth. My phone buzzed with messages from concerned guests, but I ignored them. Instead, I opened my laptop and accessed my property management account. 3 years ago, I bought a small apartment building as an investment, 4 units. The property manager handled tenant screening, rent collection, and maintenance. I purchased it outright using money from research grants, teaching assistantships, and a small inheritance from my grandfather. Nicole lived in Unit 2B, She'd applied through the normal channels, and my property manager had approved her without knowing she was my sister. I'd kept the ownership private, operating through an LLC. Nicole paid $1,200 a month in rent, often 5 to 10 days late, sometimes with insufficient funds fees she'd complain about in family group texts. I pulled up her file. She was currently 8 days late on this month's rent. She had been late 17 times in the past 36 months. The lease clearly stated that habitual late payment constituted grounds for non-renewal or termination. I drafted an email to my property manager with specific instructions, attached documentation of the late payment pattern, and sent it. Then I called him directly. "Tom, this is Dr. Hayes. I need to discuss Unit 2B. The tenant was always late. What about her? I want to begin eviction proceedings based on the habitual late payment clause in the lease. Pull the documentation and file the notice first thing tomorrow morning." "Are you sure? That's a pretty aggressive move. Most landlords give more chances than we already have." "I'm sure. File it at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I want the notice served by 9. Your property, your call. I'll have our attorney draft it tonight." I hung up and sat in the coffee shop until it closed. Then I drove to a hotel and got a room. I didn't want to go home and face the aftermath of my ruined party. The next morning at 8:30, Tom texted me a photo, the eviction notice posted on Nicole's door. Official, legal, and undeniable. My phone started ringing at 8:45. Nicole's name flashed across the screen 14 times in a row. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages escalated from confused to angry to panicked about the eviction notice and the habitual late payment clause. At 10 o'clock, my mother called. "Nicole says she's being evicted. Do you know anything about this?" Why would I know anything about Nicole's housing situation? "She said the landlord is being unreasonable. Something about late payments. Can you help her? Maybe you could lend her money for a lawyer?" No. No. Just like that? She's your sister. She has a child. She's an adult with a lease agreement she violated repeatedly. That's between her and her landlord." Mom sighed. "You're still upset about yesterday. I know Tyler shouldn't have torn your diploma, but kids do things like that." Nicole said she didn't realize it was the real one. Tyler repeated exactly what Nicole told him, word for word, that I'm not smart, that I waste money, and Nicole rewarded him for it. She high-fived him, Mom, in front of 30 people at my graduation party. She was joking. "You're too sensitive." "I'm not sensitive. I'm just done. Nicole has her own problems to solve now. I'm not getting involved." I hung up. By noon, my phone had exploded with messages. Nicole had told the whole family about the eviction, painting herself as a victim. She posted in the family group chat asking if anyone knew a tenant rights lawyer. My brother sent me a private message. "Can you believe Nicole's landlord? Evicting a single mom over being a few days late with rent." I didn't respond. At 2 o'clock, Tom called me. "Your tenant requested a meeting with the property owner. She's claiming harassment and wants to negotiate." "Set it up. Tomorrow at your office. 2 o'clock. You're coming in person?" "Yes." The next afternoon, I arrived at Tom's office at 1:45. He prepared a folder with Nicole's complete rental history, every late payment, every NSF fee, every warning notice she'd ignored or complained about. Nicole arrived at 2 o'clock sharp. She walked into the conference room where I was sitting next to Tom, and her face went from determined to confused to shocked in about 3 seconds. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I own the building," I said calmly. "I'm the landlord." She stared at me. "That's not possible. You're a student. You don't have money." "I have a doctorate in biochemistry, 3 years of postdoctoral research income, teaching income, grant income, and an inheritance from Grandpa Hayes. I bought the building 3 years ago. You applied to rent Unit 2B through the normal channels. My property manager approved you without knowing our relationship. You've been my landlord this whole time?" "Yes." "And you're evicting me?" "Yes." She looked at Tom, then back at me. "Because I hurt your feelings about the diploma? This is insane. You can't evict someone because you're upset." "I'm evicting you because you've been late with rent 17 times in 36 months. The lease clearly states that habitual late payment is grounds for termination. You've violated the lease repeatedly. This has nothing to do with feelings. I always pay, just sometimes a few days late. 8 to 12 days late, consistently, which incurs late fees, NSF fees, and creates administrative burden. You've also complained publicly in family texts about those fees, Fees that exist because you can't pay rent on time. Tom slid the folder across the table. This is your complete payment history, every late payment documented with dates and amounts. Nicole opened the folder and flipped through the pages. Her face grew redder with each one. So what, you've been keeping score this whole time, waiting for a chance to kick me out? I've been operating a rental property professionally. You've been violating your lease chronically. The eviction is based solely on your failure to comply with the terms you signed. This is because of the diploma. Admit it. You're doing this because Tyler tore up your stupid piece of paper. Tyler tore up my diploma because you told him I wasn't smart. You encouraged him to disrespect me publicly at my graduation party in front of my colleagues and friends. Then you laughed about it. That showed me who you are. But the eviction is based on documented lease violations that existed long before yesterday. Where am I supposed to go? I have a kid. That's not my concern. You have 60 days to vacate per state law. That gives you time to find new housing. I can't afford first and last month's rent somewhere else. Do you know how much that costs? $1,200 times 2, $2,400, plus whatever security deposit the new place requires. Yes, I know exactly what it costs. I'm a landlord. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly. This is revenge. Pure revenge because your ego got bruised. This is a business decision based on your documented failure to pay rent on time. If you'd like to challenge the eviction, you're welcome to hire an attorney and go to court. The judge will see the same documentation you're looking at. 17 late payments in 36 months are more than enough to justify eviction for lease violation. You're really doing this? Yes. After everything we've been through as sisters. What have we been through, Nicole? You've spent years telling people I'm wasting my time with education. You've called my career playing student. You've mocked my research. You taught your 6-year-old son to tell me I'm not smart. You destroyed my diploma and laughed about it. What exactly is the sisterly bond you're referring to? She opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed her purse. The family is going to hear about this. They already have, you told them. What you didn't tell them is that I'm the landlord you've been complaining about for 3 years. The one who charges unfair late fees when you don't pay on time. The one whose property you've been living in while insulting me at every family gathering. She left without another word. That evening my mother called. Nicole told me you own her building. Is that true? Yes. And you're evicting her? Yes. How could you do this to your sister? How could she destroy my diploma and teach her child to mock my education? How could she laugh about humiliating me in front of 30 people at my graduation party? That was wrong, but this is extreme. She has a child. You're making them homeless. I'm enforcing a lease agreement she's violated repeatedly for 3 years. She has 60 days to find housing. That's more than enough time if she starts looking immediately instead of trying to make me the villain. Everyone thinks you're being cruel. Everyone doesn't know she's been chronically late with rent for 3 years. Everyone doesn't know I've been subsidizing her housing through lenient late fee policies while she tells the family I'm not smart enough for real work. Everyone doesn't have the documentation I have. Still, she's family. Family who treats me like I'm worthless for pursuing education. Family who destroyed something I worked 7 years to achieve and laughed about it. I'm done subsidizing that treatment. Mom hung up without saying goodbye. The family group chat exploded with people taking sides. My brother sent me a private message. Heard your side. Nicole's been late with rent for 3 years? And you're the landlord she always complains about? I muted the group chat and focused on my work. Nicole moved out 58 days later, 2 days before the eviction deadline. She left the apartment in acceptable condition. Tom processed her security deposit return, minus cleaning fees and repair costs for damaged blinds. She didn't speak to me at family gatherings after that. When people asked about the rift, she told a vague story about a business dispute. She never mentioned the diploma, the insults, or the chronic late rent payments. I got my diploma reprinted. The university charged me $50 for a replacement, but it was identical to the original. I framed it and hung it in my home office, next to my published papers and my research awards. 6 months later, I was at a family dinner. Nicole was there with Tyler. He ran up to me and said, unprompted, Mom says I shouldn't have ripped your paper. She says you're actually really smart. I looked over at Nicole. She was staring at her plate, her face red. Thank you, Tyler, I said. I appreciate that. He ran off to play. Nicole and I didn't speak beyond basic pleasantries. I later learned from my brother that Nicole had struggled to find a new apartment. Her rental history showed the eviction, and several landlords had turned her down. She eventually found a place, but the rent was $1,400 a month instead of $1,200, and they required 2 months' deposit because of the eviction on her record. She also had to borrow money from our parents for the deposit, money she was supposedly paying back in monthly installments. I felt no satisfaction in that information, just a quiet recognition that actions have consequences, that you can't destroy someone's achievements, mock their life choices, and expect them to continue making your life easier. My property manager found a new tenant for Unit 2B within 2 weeks. They pay on time, every month, without complaint. I still own the building. I still maintain it well, charge fair rent, and operate professionally. And I still have my doctorate, my research, and my career, the things Nicole called not smart, while living in a building purchased with income from that very career. The irony isn't lost on me. I don't think it's lost on her either now. Some people think I was too harsh, that family deserves more chances, more grace, more tolerance. But I learned something important that day at my graduation party. Being family doesn't give someone the right to destroy your achievements and mock your worth while benefiting from your success. Nicole lived in my building for 3 years while telling people I wasn't smart. She paid rent, late but eventually, while calling my career a waste. She destroyed my diploma while depending on income from the education she belittled. I gave her 60 days and proper legal notice. I followed every law, honored every regulation, and documented everything. That's more grace than she gave my doctorate diploma. More grace than she gave my graduation party. More grace than she gave 7 years of work she summed up as not smart. I can live with my decision. She has to live with hers. And Tyler, hopefully, learns that words matter, actions matter, and you can't destroy what someone else has built without consequences, especially when you're living in something they built.